Welcome to another episode of the Pity Party. We are three Muslim women born in different parts of the world that call the Greater Toronto Area home for many, many, many years. I've grown up here. Rafia and Umayya came at different stages in their lives. As women with disabilities, we have over 150 years of combined experience. Yes, we are middle-aged women. We have plenty of stories of our trials and triumphs to share with you to have a pity party today. So, I am Rabia and I'm blind.
I'm Rafia and I'm in a wheelchair.
I'm Umayya and I'm in a wheelchair too.
October is Islamic History Month, as proclaimed by the Parliament of Canada, and Islamic Heritage Month, also proclaimed in the province of Ontario. This is an opportunity for children in the education system to learn about the history of Muslims in Canada and beyond, and their contributions to science, to technology, to astronomy, to everything humanity. And it's also an opportunity to feature art and literature in different spaces and places like libraries and museums and in virtual space to showcase and celebrate the contributions of Muslims throughout history. So, as Muslims with disabilities, we are contributing to advancing accessibility and inclusion in Canada. And maybe one day this will also form a part of the history celebrated of contributions of Muslims in Canada. So, ladies, what have we been doing to advance accessibility?
Well, I remember in the 80s working in Canada here and starting an organization called EarthCo, the Ethno-Racial People with Disabilities Coalition of Ontario. And Rabia, you and Umayya, both of you have been involved in this organization. And subhanAllah, it's been the very first organization that deals with racialized people with disabilities. And since then, we were talking about accessibility in terms of inclusion for racialized people with disabilities and people from all different faiths and background. So since in the 80s, and that's been a long, long time ago.
And that's how I got to know both of you. And Rafia, I've always, admired you as my mentor who got me into all this trouble of disability rights.
Trouble she
I
called
didn't
it.
know what my rights were until I got connected to ERDCO, and I didn't know how to fight for them until I got connected to ERDCO. Yes, I knew them on the books, I studied them in university, but I didn't know how to express my experience until I met ERDCO.
Yeah, like I was active with the movement, like the disability movement in Lebanon before I came, right? And then when I came, of course, I started looking for the people with disabilities, like the organization. So I got introduced to Ontario March of Dimes. So I went there and I was a volunteer and attended all the meetings and did a lot of events, helped them. Then eventually I got to meet Rafia. And then we start working on EarthGo. And same thing, like we feel like we need to open doors and for accessibility. Then later on, I met Rabia, and Rabia and I teamed up, right? And we were testing accessibility in all the events that the community have. Because
with all our kids.
We had our kids, so we had to take kids, right? So we really, really were there. Like imagine me, Rabia, and 7 kids.
Oh, we had fun. We had fun times.
Yeah, it was so much fun, right?
Yeah, we created things for our kids to do, the things that we never did. We made sure our girls got to swim, which we never did.
Right.
And actually, I got in the pool because Umayya wouldn't, and our youngest 2 girls were always sitting on the side. I didn't quite learn how to swim, but I learned how to just carry them into the pool and let them play one by one. You
Yeah.
know,
I have a
well,
phobia
Omaya
of
always
water.
drove us everywhere.
Right. I have a phobia of water. Then eventually we found somebody. Remember, we found
Abigail.
the girl, and then she came and she started like swimming with them.
Yeah.
So that was good. And we organized the swimming program, like me and Rabia together.
Yeah, we
So
kind of took
So
over it.
so you're saying the things our kids make us do, eh?
Yeah, exactly.
I
Well,
remember.
I think we broke a lot of rules too. Omaya and I used to have stories that we would tell to get pity. Remember, Omaya?
Yep.
Because
Remember,
because we
remember when we took the GO train and we took the kids and we had two sitters with us. And we took the kids, they wanted to go on the train to the CNE, and we took them all. And then we were sitting on the GO train. You were upstairs. There was no room for, no, me, I had a scooter, so there's no way I can go to the second deck, right? So Rabia, you were there, and the kids were up and down. They go between you and me, right? And then we arrived, so we got out. You forgot your keys upstairs.
Oh
And the
no.
stewardess, yeah, and you and the kids had left, like gone with the sitters, right? And you and me, I'm sorry, are standing there. Then the stewardess came to the door. We said to her, "Can you please? There is a set of key upstairs. We forgot them. Can you please get them?" And she looked at she looked at you, Rabia. She said, "Okay, she can't walk, but what's wrong with you?" You told her, "I can't see. If I go up, I can't find them." And she can't go up. She can see, but she can't make it up. Poor thing, the lady. She paused like few seconds, then she ran up, right? Because they stopped the train. She ran up and she got us the key, and we were on our way.
no, but we had stories prepared because Omaya drove. She had a lift on the back to put her scooter, and she drove her Odyssey. So we would pack up all the kids. There's 7 kids and 2 of us, and 7 seats. So we used to, violate those safety rules, right? When our kids were little, we double belted them and all that kind of stuff. And we had these stories. Omaya used to say, if we ever get pulled over, she'll pull up her crutch and say to the officer, she can't see and I can't walk, and we have all these kids. What do you want us to do?
That's true. That's true.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
We used to come up with stories of how can we leverage the pity to our advantage.
And we wanted our kids to have a normal life. Like,
Mhm,
we really
mhm.
wanted them to, not feel that, oh, their moms have a disability, so they can't do this or they can't do that. We really want to give them a full swing of life, whatever they want, but make sure like they're safe and, you know, uh, so they can get that experience. So that was the goal.
Yeah, we never wanted them to feel deprived. We
Yeah.
never wanted them to feel sorry for themselves.
Yep.
Mhm, mhm.
That was really important.
Yeah.
And the other piece of it was, I couldn't always pay for cabs to take my kids everywhere.
Hard. Yeah.
And because I had 4 kids, I'd always need a van, not just a car. And how am I going to manage with car seats and this and that? My husband was busy working. I also worked, but I had more
Hard.
flexibility,
Really hard.
you know.
Like, if you have a disability, honestly, and you're a parent, it's layers and layers of challenges. Like, for example, Trans Help in Mississauga, it's for you and a caregiver. You can't take a child with you. So imagine if I want to take my child with me to a doctor, I can't use Trans Help, like, and a caregiver. Like, imagine the layers and layers of
Well,
challenges,
some of
right?
those rules have relaxed over time,
Yeah.
but it's still accessible transportation is not
No,
ideal for families.
no.
So let's talk about early years. Let's talk about when our kids were babies. I got to tell you, thank God I had my mom and a husband that was open-minded. I hated doing diapers. Diapers were not the easiest thing. Also it was challenging because, I couldn't always see all the poop, right? To clean it up properly.
Yeah.
I had a very interesting time with diapers because I do have a person who works with me like full time when I was with the kids, and one of the things was at that time nobody was home and just me and the kids, and then my little Ahmed decided to do number 2. So I'm like, and he's crying, so I have to change him. And as I said, I only can use one hand, So I put him down there, and I'm like trying to do everything, and he was. I said, I talked to him. I said, Ahmed, you're gonna work with mom. You're gonna work with me, and we're gonna get this done, right? And he's like, he sat, he lay down so still, and I was turning over, wipe the part, turning him the other side, wipe the other part. Then when it's all thing, I throw him over my shoulder, took him to the washroom. I couldn't get into the by the tub, but I had to do it at the sink to wash him off and things like that. But it's interesting how children pick up on
Yeah,
on your intuition, and they understand, right?
absolutely.
Sometimes I watch how the my attendant would change him, and he would be like kicking all over the place and
Yeah,
fighting all.
yeah.
But when it comes to me, he was like
Is
calm.
your mom? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he understood. So that was
Same.
interesting.
With me, it was because I was working all the time, right? So very little time I have. So in the daytime, I had a sitter, right? But in the evening, they're mine and the weekend. So what I used to do, if they need to change diaper, I teach them as far as they can start walking. I teach them. You go get the diaper and the wipe and come and lie down. And they do it, Rafia, exactly like you're saying. So they come, they bring the diaper and the wipe, and they lie down and they wait for me. Look how cute it is, right?
I know, I
So
know.
yeah, so it was really really like heartwarming, like
Yeah.
you say, like how kids accept you, how kids work with you, how kid it's amazing
Yeah, I
experience.
mean, a lot of times you hear all these horror stories of children's aid intervening, and unfortunately, people don't always have the supports they need to be successful parents. And there have been some really sad situations that I've intervened in. But we have the right to be mothers. We
Hmm.
have the right to raise our children. We will figure it out. It's natural in whatever way, shape, or form. I mean, okay, I'll admit, I carried my kids. Did I bump them into a wall once or twice? Boom. Sure, I did. They're perfectly fine.
That's not
I didn't
intended.
know.
Yeah, I know.
I tell you, one of the things for me when my kids were small, I was worried about how I'm going to teach them to pray, because I'm in a wheelchair. I sit and pray, right? And I don't. I want them to stand up and do it. The right way, kind of thing. And I was like so overthinking this and so consumed about how I'm gonna teach them to pray, right? But subhanallah, like my husband take them to the masjid, and they saw what they were doing, and they would follow. And even when I pray with them alone, like me and them, they would still stand up and pray. But one day, one of my kids said to me, "Mommy, can I sit down and pray?" And I said, "Sure you can, sure you can." But it's better for you to stand up. But it's interesting how we would worry about something, but then it would all turn out to be right. Okay, at the end.
I remember one of the most vulnerable moments for me is we were at a playground, and Aya, my little, was like 1.5. She's sitting with me, or two, in the scooter, and the other two are playing on the swings. And Aya was heavy. Remember, Rabia? She was really heavy. And Amina is like older than Aya, 7 years. So Aya want to sit in the swing. I can't make it to the swing because the scooter will sink in the sand.
Sand,
They
right?
put
Yes.
sand, and I can't get out. Right. So
Yeah.
There were no accessible playgrounds back
right.
then.
And
Yeah.
Amina could not hold Aya to put her in the swing. And Aya wanted the swing. So I said to Aya, Mom, should we go get them some refreshment? There was like a convenience store across, right? So you can pick, Mama, what you give them. And so I convinced her. She said yes. So I said, you guys play. We're going to just cross to the convenience store and get you some refreshment. So she went, she picked them what they like, and she came back, and she feeling like $1,000,000 and forgot all about it. So yeah, there were a lot of vulnerable moments that we really had to find an alternative way to make it like okay, so the kids don't hold it, like don't
Mhm.
hold onto it, and they feel like,
See,
why
Omaya,
mommy?
for you,
For me,
it's that independence of being able to get around, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
mhm.
See things, do things with your kids. Yes, the lifting, the moving, that was a challenge, but you drove, that was huge.
Yeah.
For me, one of the things that I found really challenging was, I wanted to be able to read to them.
Yeah.
It's a regular thing to do to support your child in their development.
Mm-hmm.
I even took up learning Braille.
Yeah.
And people think that every blind person knows Braille and have to
No.
be a super reader with Braille. I was really lousy at Braille. I found it so slow and cumbersome. Not every person uses Braille. Not every person is taught Braille. I took it up. I learned grade 1 Braille, but I wasn't that good at it. And then I just gave in, and they learned how to read eventually on their own through school. And I got some volunteers to help read books and stuff to them. Today there's more alternatives technology wise, but there's nothing like reading an old-fashioned book to your child, and that's a challenge for blind parents.
Rabia, how did you coordinate their clothes in terms of colors and stuff like that? Or is it something they did?
For themselves?
Yeah.
I always knew what I bought them, right? When they were younger, it was easier. I knew what I bought. I made sure, I needed help with laundry. So because I'm blind, I don't need personal care. There aren't funded services that can support me. But, that's where I spent my money that I earned. I was lucky enough to be able to find people that I could pay to help me, and always had my mom, right? So I would get those things organized and matched. But as soon as they were old enough, those were the little things that I taught them, to figure out color and to bring things and to find things. I mean, my biggest moment of freedom was when I could hop on the bus and take them to the mall, and do those kinds of things with them.
Yeah. Interesting.
So we've been through a lot as mothers, again, highs and lows. I think most recently, guys, what I can tell you, and I'm really opening up something, and I think if my children hear this, it'll have an impact on them. But my daughter got married. Shema got married this summer. And when she was dressed up as a bride and needing a little help around to do this and do that and fix things, as a mother, I felt very inadequate, that I couldn't help my daughter fix her veil and things like that properly. I really wanted that mother-daughter moment, and that I could imagine her, but I couldn't really see her dressed up.
Yeah.
That made me really when I started to think about it, I was about to fall apart, and then I just caught my tears and smiled and moved on from it. But we have our highs and lows, like we keep saying, there are times where we feel sorry for each other, where we pity ourselves, where we don't have, a way to overcome a certain barrier, right? But hey, I always say, I see things differently, and I don't waste time seeing, I spend time doing. So I always move on. So a big part of it is in our attitude, but there are those moments.
Since you're a mother-in-law now, you know who you can take it on.
That's an inside joke. Oh my.
And on that note, it's a wrap for another episode of The Pity Party. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum.